Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Now if you've been subscribed to me for a while, you may have been wondering why I haven't made a Bay Area video in ages. Well, the simple truth is I don't live there anymore, and I haven't for well over a year. But given that I have an audience, I feel that I still have the responsibility to inform you and guide you on ways to show support. This is very likely going to be my last Bay Area video for the foreseeable future, so I want to use it as an opportunity to reflect about my time there. I want to talk about what I saw in the community and from the agencies themselves that gave me hope for a bright future ahead, even if it feels like every few months I have to weather a storm. I know that most of you won't watch the whole thing, so I filled the description and pinned comment with a TLDR, and includes links to all the advocacy groups that I'll mention that I will properly shout out later in this video. Just a couple days ago, BART published a doomsday scenario, which would take effect as early as January 2027 if the regional transit funding measure this November fails to pass. The first phase would cut 2 lines, lower frequencies on the other lines, end service at 9 p.m., and close the 10 least used stations. The second phase would close entire track segments, including eBART and the Dublin branch. And if that's not enough, the third phase would see the entire system stop. Yeah, I have to say it bluntly. That's what they're proposing. Some of you will be saying, oh, you've seen this all before, every time they scrape by. But I'm going to be honest, I don't think we've seen any proposals this drastic. The fact that shutting down the entire system is being presented as a scenario tells you everything you need to know. And this isn't even rage bait. It's straight from a BART board meeting slide deck. I don't think anyone up there wants to do this, and I'm certain that other agencies will publish similar cuts very soon. Things are really on a knife edge this time. So why do I still have hope? Well, that's what I want to spend my last ever Bay Area video talking about. So let's start at the beginning. This will all be without a script, so it might get quite rambly, but here we go. So I moved to the Bay in early 2021. Still in the peak of the pandemic, no vaccines yet. I was going for college, obviously. And coming in, I had a very suburban background. I never really lived in a walkable urban area. Everything I needed would be accessible by car where I was growing up. We did have trains where I lived, but they didn't really go everywhere you needed them to go. So I was sort of buying them for fun more than, practical transportation. And before moving to Berkeley, I'd never gotten a public bus in my life. So thank you 51B for being the first. But yeah, this was not only a time of the peak of the pandemic, but it was also a time of the peak of the narratives around BART. Talk of homelessness, drugs, a lack of cleanliness on board the system, and of course, people just not willing to ride because, there's no commuting going on. So I never really thought of BART for the first few months while I was settling in. But then something very magical happened. One of my all-time favorite artists hosted a music festival in Oakland. Not only did I go there, but BART also ran extra trains after the event ended. So yeah, thank you, Porter. I love your music, but you made me a BART fan, which is probably an even bigger legacy. I'm like, if BART are going to run extra trains for this festival, maybe I should ride them more often. But to be fair, they know the demographic very well. 20-something boba-drinking ravers who loved music with Japanese influences. Anyway, in the weeks and months after that, I rode BART more. I went to San Francisco through the Transbay Tube for the first time. I took it back from the airport when I had a flight during Thanksgiving break, and I just started exploring more places. I rode Muni Metro for the first time. I rode other AC transit buses outside of Berkeley for the first time. Eventually, it took me a while, but eventually I rode Caltrain for the first time, and after begrudgingly convincing myself that it's not going to be that bad, I rode VTA Light Rail for the first time. And of course, in that time, I also was selected for Bay Pass, which, if you're not aware, was a program, and still is, it's still active, is a program that basically gives you free transit on anything that's based on Clipper while you have it. And I was selected completely randomly to be part of the pilot. So I had 2 years of basically free transit except Amtrak and ACE. They could not have picked a better person. I was already getting into transit, but now I was even more into it. I went out and rode ferries. I rode to the very edges of BART. I rode to the edges of Muni. I did the entire VTA light rail system. I rode some VTA buses. I rode SMART. I rode Marin Transit, Golden Gate Transit, Wheels, Union City Transit even. I was just out there conquering these agencies like Infinity Stones. And then I started to get into my content creation. The speed running stuff also came into play around this time. I was really excited about transit, and it was all thanks to Baypass. These odysseys of trips that I was doing without paying a single penny for it, except the time I went on Ace and Amtrak. But anyway, yeah, and this also kind of motivated me to start making videos. You know, we didn't really have a YouTuber from the Bay Area around this time. I mean, we do have a couple others now. Todd God, I love your work. Um, but we didn't really have somebody because this was the time, RM Transit was getting very popular. Not Just Bikes was actually still a respectable YouTuber. I can't stand him anymore. The likes of Alan Fisher, you name it. I think Nandert was kind of, I don't exactly remember if Nandert was like really big at that time, but yeah, I'm like, there is no Bay Area transit creator. So I got on my camera and started filming stuff. In fact, the very first video that I was ever going to release hasn't been seen by anybody. Like, the first video on my channel is from April 2023, when I saw the new TOD at Millbrae. But the first video that I ever made, I just didn't release it. It was so bad, I'm like, I can't put this out. But given that, you've been with me for this whole time and you're still watching this video, I'm now going to show you my first ever video that didn't make the final cut. Today we're headed to see the brand new Central Subway Muni line in San Francisco on its opening day. We got off the BART in Montgomery and took the 30 bus down to the new station at Chinatown. And the crowd was very excited for the occasion. Chinatown Station itself is really airy, and I like the artwork here, but we had a train to catch.
Yeah. Oh. Looking swift already on the way.
We went back and forth along the line, then checked out Yerba Buena Station, which is really nice. These digital indicators in particular are really handy. Here at Union Square, I like how the exit signs at platform level tell you exactly which exit is which, but I was here to check out the transfer to Powell Station. Overall, I was really impressed with the Central Subway. I really like the station design, they're all very modern and clean, and the station transfer between Union Square and Powell is also really good. Starting in January, this will link up with existing T-Third services, which will hopefully go to help improve the connectivity of San Francisco through transit. Okay, that was incredibly cringe, but you get the idea. More videos came, more opportunities came. When the speedrunning scene happened, I met all the other runners and stuff, started to engage with some of the Fanime events and stuff, met the BART team, got invited to HQ. Unfortunately, I did have to leave soon after that, just personal circumstances. I'm not going to get into that. But in that sort of year and a bit, I started to really understand the heart of Bay Area transit. What exactly makes this tick? Youth engagement is incredible with the way that the agencies, try and get us involved. I have a Samtrans pencil case. I had ridden Samtrans like 5 times in my life, but I still went out to Brisbane. Yeah, it's pronounced Brisbane in California, not Brisbane. I went out to one of their events and collected a bunch of swag. Um, but yeah, BART in particular are great with the whole anime thing and all their other events that they do and the way they promote sports events, concerts like Porter Show, even parades and stuff like that. They'd have a big presence at Pride as well, which is always a good thing. And I do think, people will dismiss it as fluff, but I do think it goes a long way in terms of getting riders on board. It makes the system feel, like something that is approachable for this target demographic that they're hoping to target some growth in. Because the reality is you're not going to bring back the commuters. All of them, at least. And BART knows it is a system that was built as effectively a modern metro-like commuter rail. I guess lowercase c commuter rail, not capital C. It actually ran frequently all day and went to more places beyond the city centers and suburbs and stuff. But even still, you're not going to fundamentally change the way the BART network looks very quickly. It is still, even to this day, you can just tell it's designed for getting into San Francisco very quickly. And not an awful lot else. Even Oakland is not served very well, as I covered in a previous video, which I think is still my best video that I've ever made, talking about how BART has kind of failed Oakland. But yeah, you're not going to be able to change those realities. So maybe it's time to target a new demographic a little bit. Expand your horizons. And that's why I think youth engagement has worked so well for the agencies here in the Bay. But it's not just, Porter Robinson, Bay Pass, speed running, advocacy, youth engagement, anime girls. There is better coordination among the agencies I've found in the past couple years. Even simple things like coordinating the schedule change days, like this whole big sync that they talk about every now and then. I don't think it was like that a few years ago, but as of recently, the agencies have been making their changes pretty much at the same time. You're seeing buses time to BART more often. Wheels in particular, they've been doing a little bit better at that recently. And yeah, this is the most fundamental problem with Bay Area transit, and I think it is going to take... I don't think it will ever be fully solved because of how funding for the agencies and stuff works. But fare integration, Clipper 2.0 and contactless payment have all been developments as well in the past couple years. All of this is towards this goal of making transit easier to access. Because, again, the Bay Area transit landscape does have some glaring issues that a lot of people have tried to commentate on, including myself. But, every now and then you get this video from someone who's visiting the region and talks about transit in the region, and you can tell they don't quite get it. There are some things that they mention in their videos that just aren't true and I think aren't fair criticisms. And I hate to have a go at individual creators, but, you see the whole BART only runs every 20 minutes. It's not a metro. It's not good enough to be a metro because of that. I'm going to level with you guys. That argument is pathetic. Because there are so many parts of BART where the effective frequency is much better, and there are well-timed and designed interchange locations, like at MacArthur and 19th Street, where they have deliberately set it up so that the frequency looks like it's every 20, but in reality it's every 10 because of that instant transfer. Bayfare sometimes is great, sometimes sucks. I couldn't even tell you what it's like right now. I haven't looked at the most recent schedules because, I just don't live in the Bay again. I have to be very clear with that. I don't live there anymore. But yeah, the only places where BART does run every 20 minutes are the Dublin line, which is very commuter heavy in its very nature of only having 3 stations, all of which are in highway medians and 2 of which are quite desolate, let's be real. But Dublin Pleasanton Station does have a big catchment area, and it has a lot of good buses from Wheels that are increasingly getting better time to BART trains. But yeah, it is a very commuter-heavy line, so you can't expect it to have the greatest of frequency. Everything on the Antioch line on weekends, again, not much local travel happens on that line. It is sort of commuter-oriented as well. You do hit a lot of nice park and rides on that line, but yeah, it is a very commuter-heavy line, so you're not going to see much local travel on it. But again, that's only on weekends as well. Like, all day on weekdays, it runs every 10 minutes, which is worthy of praise. Except the BART bit, that's every 20 still, but I think that's more of a technicality of how the transfer at Pittsburgh has to be very precise. I think they would run eBART every 10 if they could. And finally, Millbrae. Now that's bad. That is really bad. That Millbrae is only every 20. They need to automate. They need to make the SFO Millbrae Y like CBTC, and they're working on it. That's the other thing as well. You see these sort of small-scale projects like CBTC installation. They're not going to get the press. They're not going to get the highlights and the glamour. But you do see a place that is really working with a very limited budget and has quite a storm that it has to weather so often. But it gets creative in the ways that it tries to solve problems. It feels like a place that has the inertia to make progress as long as the road is. And that is through, forward thinking from agencies, better collaboration, and of course, all of the advocacy work that is very prevalent in the Bay Area to an extent that is almost unrivaled anywhere else in the world. So I did want to highlight a couple of those groups. I'll do that more towards the end, but I did want to mention Seamless Bay Area in particular. These are probably the most well-known group. They have been very heavily pushing for, integrated fare zones and more smooth transfers. I was going to say seamless, but I didn't want to use their name again. But yeah, I'll put a link to everything that they do in the description and how you can get involved. But yeah, that's pretty much my Bay Area transit story and sort of why I still have hope, even though the situation now is quite literally on a precipice. If you're able to go support that ballot measure and engage with advocacy groups, I will mention all the ones I'm aware of towards the end, but I did want to talk a little bit about also why I made videos even after I left. Because yeah, I hear the argument. You're not a local. You're not a permanent Bay Area native. You're not an authentic voice on us. Some people say that to me. Unfortunately, I have gotten a lot of that, and I think it's fair. Ultimately, I would love if we had an authentic Bay Area voice. But I guess part of that for me was trying to fill that gap. But equally, I had built up an audience. And that, again, I said at the very beginning of the video, having an audience comes with the responsibility of informing your audience. And, I just had a lot that I wanted to talk about. And I do feel that the unique experience of someone who isn't, a full-time resident that, hasn't fully understood everything and is experiencing things for the first time, I think that counts for something as well. Because you got to remember, Bay Pass was initially marketed to college students, and not all of those would have experienced public transit in the region or anywhere else, depending on where they're coming from. But also, there was another reason why I kept going and making videos all throughout 2025 about the place that I had moved out from. And that was because in 2025, probably earlier, I really don't care, but most prominently last year, the YouTube urbanism transit space was tainted by the introduction of two closely related channels in which they are basically the same entity, known as Great Train Speed and On the Trains. If you've not seen these channels, do not let yourself get brain rotted by their AI slop. But yeah, they are fully AI made videos about American train stuff. Sometimes they try other countries, but it's usually the US. And one of their favorite regions to cover in the US is the Bay Area. Their most viewed video is about Silicon Valley Phase 2, and that video sucked, by the way. But they've been able to get so many views because, they're probably botting their views. I don't want to get into the sort of nitty-gritty about an AI slop factory. Many creators have already talked about just why their videos suck so much. But one thing I've not seen mentioned is I have watched Great Train Speed videos, unfortunately, for the sake of research, let's just say, to figure out just how bad it is. And something that I don't think anyone's ever commented on is when you watch a Great Train Speed video, you don't really feel anything. It's just a nothing video. You just put it on to hear a voice speak. It's not even a real human's voice, but let's look past that for now. All that they do in their videos is just read off some publication or article from a transit agency, and then it just goes on to speculate the craziest things ever. There's no analysis, there's no opinion, it's just reading things out and adding a tiny bit of exaggeration here and there because, clickbait. And yeah, I felt that despite only having a few thousand subscribers, I am probably one of the biggest voices online about Bay Area transit. And I did feel that making videos about sort of long-term future projects, like really, really long-term, like Great Train Speed would do that. So I felt, if I were to make human-made videos and actually talk about things and have, present different alternatives, talk about the pros and cons, and actually offer my own conclusions at the end, I felt that would resonate more with people. And I felt that I had the footage and the experience necessary to talk about that. And I hope that if you have watched these videos, like the Geary Subway one, the Link 21 one, if you have watched those videos, I hope they resonated with you to some extent. And I hope that you can see that I did put effort into them. And I did want to tell a story about, how I experienced Bay Area transit and the ideas that can come from that. But yeah, ultimately, I no longer live there. I am just one drop in the ocean. In fact, my nearest ocean is now the Atlantic. So I'm a drop in a completely different ocean from the Bay Area's ocean. So I just don't think it's fair for me to keep making videos when, there are people on the ground right now who need their voices to be heard. So I would love to amplify those voices if I can. If any of you are aspiring Bay Area videographers, do let me know. I'd be happy to, promote your channel. Again, my audience is small. I'm not gonna, pretend to be the Robin Hood of YouTube. But I do feel that the Bay Area does need more voices to speak out about this looming crisis. So yeah, as promised, I said I would mention some advocacy groups. I highlighted Seamless Bay Area, but some of the other big ones are, the Trans Bay Coalition. They've been quite prolific in the past. SF Transit Riders, they have reached out to me before, actually. They wanted me to do a Transit Month promo. But they're, if you're in San Francisco specifically, they're the ones to go to. There's a lot in Santa Clara County, like SCC4 Transit. And then even on the Oakland side, there's the East Bay Transit Riders Union. And sort of a statewide thing, Californians for Electric Rail. Those ones are more focused on, super long-term things. But they were highlighted in this recent video by Overhead Wire, fitting name, about Coaster. Great channel, by the way. Love your content so far. Keep it up. But yeah, again, links to everything that you can support in the description and the pinned comment. Bay Area Transit really needs all the help that it can get. But I hope that I was able to convince you that I still believe that, they're not going to finish Silicon Valley in 5 years or nothing like that. The road to all of these visions of, Silicon Valley, Geary Subway, Link 21, Dumbarton Rail, whatever of these sort of massive long-term future projects. I don't even know if I'm going to see them. I hope I get to. But in terms of working with what you have and making something with good bones really great, I think the Bay Area has that inertia that it needs. From the advocacy groups, from the know-how in the agencies, from all this youth engagement, it does count for something. It makes people more aware about transit. And, Bay Pass coming to universities, I hope more unis actually get it. It all comes together, and I think it's an exciting, I don't want to say an exciting time, probably the wrong word, but it is a very, I don't know what is the right word. I really don't know what to say. I'm off script at the moment. It is a very important time, I think, to be a transit advocate in the Bay Area. So yeah, I'm not going to ramble any more than I need to. Thank you so much if you're still watching this video and for following my journey as a creator. I'm not going anywhere in terms of making videos. I've still got a lot coming and plenty more from my new home and other places that I go. But once again, this is my Bay Area Transit YouTube retirement, so to speak. If very important things happen, I might make videos. But ultimately, fact of the matter is, I don't live there anymore. I don't think that I can be an authentic voice anymore. And I really hope to see others, step up to that, and maybe that can be you. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and please get this measure funded so that Colma won't close.
West Oakland, Glen Park, Hayward, downtown San Jose.